Hey guys, I'm editing this video and I just wanted to pop in real quick. Just give you a heads up that some of the sound quality in this video isn't great. I'm obviously aware of that. I've said it before, we make all of our videos on our iPhones or the iPad, so we don't have any fancy equipment. We don't have any fancy microphones, hence the headset here. So just so you're aware, I did go ahead and use the content because it is good, and I did want to, put my first sourdough video out there, but some of the sound quality, frankly, just sucks. So bear with it, and hope you enjoy it. Good morning, family. It is about, well, actually, it's almost 8 o'clock. I'm getting this done a little bit later than I thought, but I am getting ready to make sourdough. Surprisingly enough, in all of my bread making years, I have never made sourdough before. So I finally bit the bullet. It just seemed like too much maintenance. I didn't like the whole being tied to having to feed it and discard and feed it. I have enough things to feed in my life every day. I didn't want to have to free feed my bread dough. So, but I found a recipe. Farmhouse on Boone, Lisa from Farmhouse on Boone. I didn't know you could do this, but apparently you can put your sourdough starter in the refrigerator and leave it there until you are ready to cook with it. So that's rad. I can totally get behind a system like that. So I decided to go ahead and start a sourdough starter. I've been feeding this for about a month. I'm sorry, not a month. I decided to go ahead and start a sourdough starter. I've been feeding it for a little bit over a week. I think it's been 9 days. It's super bubbly. It's been rising and doing all the things that it's supposed to do, at least according to the interwebs, to Mr. Google Pants. It's ready to go, so I am going to attempt my first loaf of sourdough bread today. Well, technically tomorrow, but starting the whole process today. So the recipe I found, you feed your sourdough in the morning and you make your dough that evening after it's done its whole rise and fall and everything, and then you let your bread dough sit overnight to proof and get real big, and then you cook your bread the next morning. So I just thought it would be fun to document my first sourdough bread loaf. We'll see how this goes. It may be a complete disaster, but it may turn out awesome. You never know. So I fed my sourdough. I'm going to put the lid back on it. I'm going to let it sit, and then we'll come back this evening. I've set a reminder on my Alexa device to remind me to make my dough. So we'll see how this goes. Well, sourdough has started. Well, sourdough has been fed. This is like a whole process. I need to get all the terms correctly. But anyways, the sourdough starter has been fed, and now Pickle and I are heading out to the barn to do chores. Emma, what are we going to do out at the barn? Oh, we're going to feed Osu. Yes, we're going to feed Osu, feed the Bamas. That's the goats and the sheep. They're collectively known as the Bamas around here. Feed the Bamas and feed the cows. Oh, she found a stick. So anyways, Ryan and Ella went to the local meat market that we found that we've been loving all the meats from. So come along with little one and I while we do chores. Hey, what are you doing?
Coffee.
Whose coffee is that?
Mama's.
Are you drinking Mama's coffee?
Yeah.
Did you steal Mama's coffee?
Mama, no. Mama, no.
You want me to let the goats out?
No.
He's saying good morning to you. Go see Hayden. Don't hold him, just love him. Okay, I just wanted to take a second and point this out. Look at how bubbly. It's only been about an hour, and you can see how much it's risen. It was down to, I don't know, maybe about here. Now it's up to about here. But you can really see how much feeding it makes a difference. According to this recipe, I add the starter to some water, and then I add the flour to it and mix it all up, and then I let it sit for an hour. So I'm going to do that, and then we will tackle the next step. Flour and salt, and I mixed it up. It said it's supposed to be shaggy, so I'm not sure. Is this shaggy? I guess this is shaggy. So now I'm going to cover it with a towel and let it sit at room temperature for an hour. See you in an hour. Okay, so I'm actually getting ready to head out and do chores. This is the last thing I'm supposed to do with it tonight. It's called stretch and fold. So basically you pick up a corner, stretch it out, and then fold it over, turn the bowl, pick up the corner, stretch it out, and fold it over. So you do that basically on all four sides, and then I'm going to cover it, and then it sits on the counter for all night. And then in the morning, we do a bunch of other stuff, and then finally we can make bread. This whole sourdough thing is a long, involved process. So hopefully I'm doing this all right. I'm not sure what it's really supposed to look like, but I'm going to do this stretch and fold, head out and do chores, and then finally get in bed myself. Overnight, and now I get to shape it, let it rest for a little bit longer, and then it goes in the oven. Don't mind the glasses, I haven't put my contacts in for the day. It's early yet. So I'm going to do that. I've got some parchment paper to put it on, and my surface is, I'm going to flour it a little bit and then hopefully be able to shape this. It's a little bit different than what I normally do with bread, so hopefully I can do this right, but I'm probably going to look like an idiot doing it. Okay, while I'm waiting for the oven to be ready, I have the other loaf is rising or proofing. I don't know. It's doing something. I'm supposed to let it sit for another hour after that. Last thing, I need to, assuming that everything goes well and I make another loaf tonight, because I think we can probably go through one loaf a day if we're going to use this as like our regular bread for the day. I need to feed my sourdough so that we can get this started again tonight. So I've got my cup of, oh, timer's going off. That means I need to put this in the oven. Alexa, timer off. I love that thing. I use it to set timers and add things to my grocery list. It's not very techy, but it works. Anyway, so I've got my flour. So I'm going to add that and then get some water. And I'm going to overflow this container today because it's pretty high. I may need to come up with another recipe to use. But anyway, so I've always been told not to use metal utensils and containers when working with breads and sourdoughs because it, like the fermenting or whatever, can react to the metal and not do as well. I don't know if that's true, but it's what I've read in a couple of places. I remember reading that, so that's why I have a glass jar, and then I always just use the back end of the spoon. I feel like it stirs a little bit better, so I'm just gonna mix this all in. And I didn't discard any. Normally, like when you're feeding your sourdough, you're gonna discard some, and you can use your discard in a recipe. That's like the whole point. But I didn't discard any because I want this to be nice and full so that I can make more bread or other recipes. So I just stir this up, get all the lumps out of it, make sure everything is well combined, and then put the lid back on it, or the napkin back on it, and put it up. Okay, so my oven is at temperature, and I've had my cast iron in the oven, so it's nice and hot. I've got the sourdough in the parchment paper. So what I'm going to do, the recipe says to take the parchment paper and the sourdough, using it like a sling, and put it in the cast iron. So I'm going to grab the cast iron out of the oven. Okay, so I've got the Dutch oven out of the oven. It's incredibly hot. I am actually supposed to put a lid on this, but I don't have a lid for my Dutch oven. This is a hand-me-down. It was my grandmother's, and it didn't come with a lid. So I'm just going to use one of my glass lids. Hopefully it works. I think it should. I've used it before when I make risotto, so it should be fine. So now I'm going to take the parchment paper with the sourdough in it, and I'm going to move it. Oh, I need to score it first. That's right. So I'm going to, don't mind my utility knife. It's clean. I washed it. I'm just going to do like your classic like cross score because I don't know what I'm doing. So scoring it. And I guess the scoring just helps it so that the loaf splits where you want it to instead of splitting like on the side or someplace weird. That's my understanding. And then some little decorative ones because I decided I want to get that. All right, so now I'm going to take my parchment and I'm going to move the bread over into the Dutch oven. Okay, still looks good and scored. Make sure it doesn't seal back up. And then I'm going to put this in the oven with the lid on. Okay, so the 20-minute timer went off, and now I take the lid off, and it cooks for another, I think, 15 minutes, and that just like browns the top. So I'm going to take the lid off, and then we'll come back in 15 minutes, and fingers crossed this turned out okay. The timer went off. I set it for 15 and then checked it, and it wasn't quite as brown as like the picture showed, so I set the timer for another 5 and left it. I don't like a really like crispy crust, so I prefer a little bit softer of a crust, so I didn't want it to get too overdone. Anyways, the timer went off, so I'm going to pull it out of the oven and we'll see how this looks. Okay, I'm not going to complain about how it looks. It looks pretty good. So So we'll see how it tastes in about an hour. Come on back. Okay, so it's out of the oven. Looks amazing. So now apparently it needs to cool for about an hour. The recipe said 1 to 2 hours, but our house is pretty cool. We keep the house around 62 or so, 60, 62. So, and I think the recipe said something about your house being around 68. So I actually ended up letting these go a little bit longer because our house is so much cooler, and the recipe said that you might have to do that if your house is cool. But since our house is cooler, we don't have to let it rest too long, because it says, the recipe says, if you cut it too early, it makes the dough or the bread like sticky or something along those lines. So we're gonna let it cool for about an hour. I think we're gonna actually go out and do chores. We're running a little bit behind this morning. So we're gonna go run out and do chores, and then hopefully by the time we get back in, it will be ready to go. So while the sourdough rests, whatever it's supposed to do, there's a lot of resting with sourdough, a lot of resting and sitting and rising, and it's a whole long process. Ryan keeps asking me if it's ready to eat, and I say, no, we have to do this, and he's like, what the heck? So while I rest for the hour, we're gonna head out and do chores. We've got both kids, the two big kids, in tow. Our baby's still taking her nap, so it makes chores a little bit easier, but we're gonna head out and feed everybody and check on everybody and make sure they're all set for the day. From chores, and the timer has gone off, so we can go ahead and actually cut into the bread now. Now we've gone through this whole long process, and somebody's awake. She's watching her dada right now. She loves dada. Can you say hi? Say hi. She's checking everything out. She always looks like she's surprised about something, but she just loves to watch everybody, especially her sisters. She adores the big girls. She loves watching them. Can you say hi? Say hi. All right, let's cut this bread and see how it is. He's off camera before I could get recording. He didn't know that I wanted to record him eating it, so I haven't tried any. What do you think? Should we make it again? Tastes like sourdough. Okay, I'm gonna call this a success for my first sourdough loaf. It's not too bad. Okay. Thanks for following along with us today on the first sourdough adventure of Oak and Barrel Meats. And yeah, thanks again. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, share us with your friends. We try and make one new video a week, but with 3 under 3 and a farm to run, that doesn't always happen, but we get it out there as best we can. If you have any tips or tricks on making sourdough, definitely feel free to post them in the comments and help me out, because obviously I'm new at this. I'm excited to try all the recipes, all the sourdough recipes, and especially if we can eat a little bit more bread, because we do enjoy bread, but it doesn't always agree with both of us. So we try and we try and limit as much bread as we can. But if we can have sourdough and it's something that we can enjoy, then that would be awesome. So definitely hit me up with all those tips and tricks and any recipes that you may have, and we'll see you on the next one.
Dada.
Ella, how's the bread?
Good.
Is it good? You like it?